I wanted to ask you a question. How many of you know at least one autistic person? You can raise your hands. That's great. So now you know one more, and it's me. Hi, I'm Tinny and I am autistic. But wait, I am not a stereotypical 5-year-old boy. Well, yes, that's true. I'm an AFAB person, so my gender assigned at birth was female, and I was diagnosed late, which, let me tell you, is very common in AFAB people. I wanted to give you a look on my life, how it really looks like in the neurotypical world. And as a disclaimer, this is just my perspective of my life. Other people will face other struggles, more or less of them, and to a different degree. That's why it's called autism spectrum disorder. So try to keep that in mind as we move forward. Do you know the photos where people are standing, looking worried inside a huge crowd? That's how I feel in the mornings when I'm trying to use the public transport, because that's the only way of commuting available for me. And I hate when random people touch me. It makes me very uncomfortable and I feel very unsafe. The touch is almost painful and I feel trapped. Many autistic individuals struggle with this. And yeah, we can't just avoid using public transport in the mornings, but sometimes we just don't have another option. And we can only rely on other people's awareness of the surroundings. Loud sounds are also a big problem for me. I usually have headphones on my head, which have noise cancelling. But what's the problem? The problem is everywhere. The tube, the car horns, the person who's playing music out loud, the scraping of the tram, and those two people who are standing right next to me shouting. I cannot stand it. The sound gets to my ears and I get so overwhelmed, and this eventually leads to meltdown. And let me tell you, you don't want to experience meltdown in public. But what is meltdown? Meltdown is an intense response to an overwhelming situation. It happens when someone is so completely overwhelmed by the current situation that they temporarily lose the control of their behavior. But it's not a temper tantrum, so it's not being naughty. For me, it's like a moment that is never going to end. I feel super overwhelmed. I start crying and I am nonverbal. So for me, it's that using verbal communication is very hard. But in order to regulate myself, I stim. And what is stimming? One of the dictionaries says that stimming is a self-stimulatory behavior that is marked by a repetitive movement or action of the body. And I want to say one important thing about it. We really need to normalize stimming because it's normal. Everybody does it. Not only neurodivergent people do it, but autistic people do it more often. And we really need to normalize it because it's a very helpful and important way of, for example, handling emotions. And for me, I really like stimming. I sometimes do the floppy hands movement. I sometimes jump and dance. And there is nothing wrong with it. We need to normalize it so that autistic people aren't stigmatized when stimming in public. And for the end, you can ask me what I can do to help autistic people in their everyday life. Well, accommodations are very important. So things like quiet hours in shops should be everyday normal things. But for me, the most important thing is education. And by this, I mean listening to podcasts, TED Talks, reading books. And the most crucial part, asking questions. Respecting boundaries is another important thing. So, for example, when you're in shop and accidentally touching someone, and they ask you to stop, basically, just stop. And if I wanted to leave you with something after the speech, it would be this. Let's be aware of our surroundings and people. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and be kind. Thank you.